Like, listen, right? I don't like Stanley.
Stanley, the Navy man, thinks he's so wise. He reads all
I think the only person I have been
with
was Stanley.
squints in his eyes, spins still so wild, like ships in the sky. But whose words are
Stanley doesn't state the obvious. Like,
you don't think one parent influence is detrimental?
Yes, he does.
I literally said they need to understand
culture.
It's a white people problem.
Okay, it's called Stanley versus the world.
You just assume their character by stereotype?
I think people do that every day.
Okay, I didn't ask you.
Do I think it's okay?
Compensated, they get reparation, and black folk, indigenous folk, other folk, unfair, even white brothers and sisters who have gone to jail innocent, who deserve some kind of...
Okay, I'll apply for it. You think I'll get it?
Have you ever been unfairly targeted by the Department of Justice? Been unfairly prosecuted by the Department of Justice?
Are those the people that are going to be in this?
So the answer is no, you haven't. So the issue is, the question is,
people who are paying for this slush fund?
why do you know it's not going to be disclosed?
Because because it says so.
Because it'll be public in whole or in part. I mean, say we can't afford Medicare or Medicaid.
He said they've cut it, and he also
for non-citizens.
No, he
we can't
did say
afford
that.
it.
So he did say
we can't
that we
afford
cannot afford Medicare.
For people to address those mistakes, I personally think.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I've supported reparations for black people for the last 50 years.
Transparency and a board
that's what it's about. Try to rationalize this in some way, and I see you're getting checkmated here because there's just no ground for justification of this.
Hello, everybody. Guys, does Poppy have a treat for you this morning or what? We got Agent 00 Deep Throat. Scott Jennings is back on the panel and on a new mission. Operation Spit or Swallow. Listen, I know it sounds crazy, but take it up with the DOJ. Let's get into this segment and we'll talk about it.
President Trump wants to reward his friends and some of his most notorious supporters with cash using your tax dollars. It is a deal worked out between the Justice Department and the IRS to settle Trump's lawsuits over leaks and claims of unfair treatment. A so-called anti-weaponization fund has been set up to dole out the money to pay Trump's allies who claim they were unfairly targeted by previous administrations. The amount, $1.776 billion, a symbolic nod, of course, to the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. By the way, it is possible the money that's in that fund could be tapped by January 6th rioters.
This is reimbursing people that were horribly treated. It's anti-weaponization. They've been weaponized. They've been, in some cases, imprisoned wrongly. They paid legal fees that they didn't have. They've gone bankrupt. Their lives have been destroyed. And they turn out to be right.
Because of you.
Now, the DOJ says anyone with a claim can file for an apology and a monetary settlement. The settlement says there are no partisan requirements. A group of 5 people will gatekeep the money, and the attorney general will pick them. In this case, that's Todd Blanche, Trump's former personal lawyer. But the president will have the ultimate power to fire any of the gatekeepers. The DOJ claims Trump himself will not receive any payments, but he will get a formal apology. We've got a lot of folks at the table, and this is going to be hot sauce, I can tell already, with the size and the arm crossing. So we're going to start with you, Ms. Ana Navarro. Is this a slush fund to appease his buddies, or is there something that is legitimate going on here?
And the other part you forgot to mention is that there's going to be no transparency, according to them. That they're not going, right, that they're not going to know. We, the taxpayer who are paying for this, are not going to know who this is going to. This is so bad. It is so bad. It's so bad prima facie. It's just bad on its face. But then when you put it in context, in the fact that Americans can't afford gas, Americans can't afford groceries, farmers are going bankrupt all over this country. We are in the middle of a war that's now cost $50 billion. He wants $1.5 billion for a ballroom. He wants hundreds of million dollars for an arch. He wants $15 million to paint the reflecting pool. And then you put on top of that now a $1.7 billion slush fund to pay his supporters and the people who feel victimized. I mean, I'm so old. I remember when most Republicans used to balk and be shocked and outraged by the idea of reparations to people who suffered slavery, but we're going to be giving money to January 6th insurrectionists. That part's okay. Yeah, it's disgusting.
Scott, is this reparations?
Look, I think there's a lot about it we don't know. I don't know who's on the committee. I don't know exactly who's going to be applying for it.
The people that Trump approves.
Well, they say anybody can apply for it, and I don't think.
Okay, I'll apply for it. You think I'll get it?
Have you ever been unfairly targeted by the Department of Justice?
I have been unfairly targeted by this administration. Yeah.
Have you been unfairly prosecuted by the Department of Justice?
Are those the people that are going to be in this?
So the answer is no, you haven't. So the issue is, the question is,
Shut up, Scott. Enough of you. You saw what he did there? He's trying to make it seem like the only ones getting the money are people who were prosecuted, when that is certainly not the case and not one of the stipulations. Guys, the right strategy here, and someone said it in my comments, and it's exactly right, is let them get away with it. Don't make a big fuss about it. And when Dems are in full control of the government, do the same thing for injustices done to Black descendants of enslaved people, for instance. Could you imagine? Which in a just world would be a normal outcome. But in
Welcome to Stanley versus the World, everyone. One interesting point here is I actually think this kind of sets a precedent. I don't, I would never do something like this to reward people who basically committed crimes. However, you know what? Reparations, maybe this is setting a precedent.
this world, very unlikely. Guys, I need to become president someday. President Papi would do some wild things, but in a good way. From reparations to changing the American flag to a bowl of rice and beans, national anthem to a Tupac song, I would have unlimited power. Guys, this is so insane to me. They're using our tax dollars. So we are literally going to be paying for some January 6th rider to get a check. They say it's for anyone who's been wronged, but like, who is determining this, that they were wrong? People that Trump puts in those positions? Like, we all know what's going to happen here. It sounds to me 1,600 people that Trump pardoned who were arrested at the Capitol, along with some key henchmen, and Trump are going to be getting this money, aside from Trump, are going to be getting this money. Guys, like, we talked about this a couple of days ago, and you'll see here how the Republicans are jumping right on board with this, and are going to be making these. Whoa, you don't think that people who've been wrongfully convicted and mistreated should get compensated? These people are a joke.
Has anyone in the history of the United States ever been unfairly targeted by the Department of Justice? Of course they have. And there ought to be, just at a top line, a way for people to seek recourse if they have been unfairly targeted. That having been said, this all started by the fact that Donald Trump had his tax returns unfairly and illegally leaked by the IRS. That's where all this started. And he was initially seeking damages for that, which he has given up. He'll receive no money, as I understand it. And now it has morphed into this idea that there have been people that have been unfairly targeted. All of this makes me a little uncomfortable because it's a lot of money and it didn't go through the U.S. Congress. That's number one. Number two, I don't want to see a president necessarily handpicking people to get payments where he could be accused of just picking people out who are political allies. But do I want a world where if you've been unfairly targeted by the federal government and it was truly unfair and you truly had something done to you that should not have been done, do I think people should be able to seek recourse for that? Absolutely, I do, because I think it probably happens.
This is not
and
what
not
this
on
is.
a partisan basis, but it probably happens all the time. And I think people ought to be able to seek some sort of damages if they've been unfairly targeted by the department or by the federal
government.
government.
Like James Comey or Tish
right. I mean, I
James?
guess the question is, you've
just
got
ignores
this,
it.
the overarching thing that has people really
he's a
riled
joke.
is the January 6th writers, some of whom pled guilty. I was in one of the trials for the Proud Boys and for the Oath Keepers, and I watched the whole thing, and I watched it play out, and it played out as any trial would play out. And here they're pardoned, and they could seek money should they be able to.
My personal view is anybody who committed documented violence against the government or against police officers, they've not been unfairly treated. If they ended up being convicted of a crime because of violence they committed, I got no real sympathy for them. Now, if there were people who were on the periphery that were swept up, over prosecuted, whatever, and they have a way to seek a recourse here, I have less of a problem with that. But I draw the line at violence. If you've committed political violence, if you attack the government building, if you attack police officers, I got real no sympathy.
Scott, you don't have a problem with Todd Blanche handpicking 5 people who Trump can fire at any moment,
Exactly.
and giving reparations that are then not disclosed to the American people who are paying for this slush fund?
Why do you know it's not going to be disclosed?
Because it says so.
Is it to be public in whole or in part?
I mean, kind of like, like I have an issue with the.
So wait, it is going to be public?
Public in whole or in part.
So this is
there
not
are
a true
parts that
tactic.
they
There are parts that they could redact, is what you say, not disclose.
You mean
but
like
it's not private from the judge.
I think that's a great example.
Look, I'll just
Like, I
right
have
now.
an issue. I have an issue with the congressional slush fund that has paid
I
out
agree with you. That's all done in
sexual
secret.
claims
Yeah.
with our taxpayer
That's all
funds,
done
and
in
we
secret.
don't know
I
it.
agree.
Right, and that should be transparent. It is shameful that it's not. It is ridiculous that we are even considering this in any way a right thing to do.
Look, I think transparency is important, and I'll
Yes,
but I
sure,
look, I do
sure,
think
sure.
partisanship aside, politics aside, people are often, have been, will be treated unfairly by the federal government and the Department of Justice. There were certainly people during the Biden years, pro-lifers sitting, praying quietly on sidewalks who were treated unfairly. So, look, I don't think we could say the federal government and the Department of Justice is perfect. It is not perfect. And if somebody did have something happen to them that's unfair, are you saying they shouldn't be able to petition their government for some sort of recourse here? Because I do believe that.
But
Now,
they
whether the
can.
fund is the right thing,
They
I
can't
don't know.
at a state level, at a federal level, people who have been unjustly targeted. I mean, we see it all the time with people who've spent, I don't know, decades in prison, and it turns out that they are innocent.
It happens.
And then all of a sudden, they get out. They're proven innocent, and they are given
But this
reparations
fund
for
will
those
not
funds.
be for those people.
Of
Cornel
course.
West, how do you see this? I mean,
No, this just-
could the King family?
I mean, and guys, $1.8 billion. If you do some quick couch math, 1,600 people were pardoned. What are they each getting more than $1 million? How many more people are we talking about who were wrongfully mistreated or convicted or whatever? 1,600 people, $1.8 billion. That's more than $1 million apiece, guys. This is just hilarious. Now, Republicans care about who may have been wrongfully convicted. We all know this isn't the case here, but for argument's sake, let's say that's what it is. When for decades this has been done to Black and Hispanics, when trying to fix some of those injustices, they would say, "Oh, the Dems just love violent criminals. We just love criminals because why? I don't know. They are soft on crime, right? That's what they will always say. They want your streets filled with violent gangs. I mean, just the hypocrisy is amazing. This is exactly what should be done to the so-called party of law enforcement. Republicans love violent criminals. They are literal traitors of this nation. I mean, prove me wrong, pendejos. We have proof right here. And you can try and twist and shout all you want like a Beatle. Beatles, the band. Twist and Shout is a song they sang. Never mind. Honestly, the best strategy, like I said, let them do it. And then the Dems have their own ammo. And they can do their own form of this using direct tax dollars from the wealthiest American citizens. Frame it as a patriotic thing to do. Wealthy people, surely you want to help out your fellow man who was wrongfully mistreated. No.
Family come back after what happened to Dr. Martin Luther King being jailed? I mean, how do you see this playing out?
Well, first, I just want to salute you, Sister Sarah. First time I get a chance to meet you,
First time I met
high-quality
you in
journalists, just like you and Abby. It's high quality. It's always a blessing. But I just want to hear my dear brother Scott try to rationalize this in some way. And I see you're getting checkmated here because there's just no grounds for justification of this unless you open the gates and you got trillions of dollars for ex-slaves and ex-Jim Crow people. You got 6,000 of the Innocence Project just at Harvard Law School of people who've been incarcerated. And you got 2.2 of mass incarceration. I've been blessed to teach in prison for 49 years. Now, tomorrow is Malcolm X's birthday. He's 101. What is it about Malcolm? Well, what we're talking about is this is just the peak of an iceberg. when you're living in an empire that is unraveling because the hatred and the greed is overwhelming. And so there's no sincerity, there's no integrity, there's no character. So people will justify anything in the name of power and might as opposed to integrity and what is right. That's a spiritual crisis. That's a moral crisis. Malcolm X was right about that. I was glad to see his face on that magnificent banner down there in Alabama when they marched in Selma and Montgomery. Martin was there, Fannie Lou Hamer was there, but it's not a question of skin pigmentation. It's a question of character, integrity, and the attempt to do what is right. There's no integrity in justifying $1.8 billion of people who engaged in criminal activity actually killed some policemen, and they get compensated, they get reparations, and black folk, indigenous folk, other folk, unfair, even white brothers and sisters who have gone to jail innocent, who deserve some kind of accountability. There's no way you can justify this. But this is just one peak of an iceberg. What we're seeing is spiritual sickness, moral decrepitude, and political corruption on steroids. But the good news is you still got folk in the country who are trying to exemplify some integrity and character and courage.
Peter, is there, and to you also, Sabrina,
Guys, that's me. He's talking about me.
is there a way to fight this? Because there has to be some.
Well, I noticed Scott didn't have much to say. Interesting.
Someone who's injured by this, right? So the public, the general public who say, hey, these are my tax dollars, they're not really considered.
Oh, if only the
this.
taxpayers had a claim against frivolous spending by the government. That would be a wonderful thing to have. No, I mean, the Trump administration is going about this all wrong. The way you're supposed to do is you're supposed to have folks set up a nonprofit, and then you either have a company do the third-party payments into the federal government for leniency, or you just allocate tax dollars from like the Inflation Reduction Act, and that goes to your political allies. That's how you button it up, you make it legal, and you avoid all of this. But to your point, like on the historic discrimination, I mean, there was $2 billion in the Inflation Reduction Act that was allocated for black farmers in the South who had been historically discriminated against by the USDA. Like, there have been tons of programs that have done this. I think there's a very legitimate claim, and let's be very clear, I agree with Scott. We're not talking about, and if they are, I condemn it, money going to folks who violently assaulted police officers. I know folks who were at January 6th, broke no laws except they were on the side of an invisible line, did not enter any building, were not violent, whose lives were upended and ruined, where other folks who were maybe not at the same political persuasion, who had committed, similar minor offenses, weren't even charged or didn't even have those charges brought up. So I think it's important that there is parity. And if there was an overcorrection or an over, exertion in one direction, that tilt.
All right, Nickelback, I'm tired of hearing you. Guys, again, if it's not the 1,600 people that were pardoned, that would be over $1 million for 1,600 people. So if it's less than that, what is it? 800 people then that are going to get this? Over $2 million a piece? Guys, this math ain't mathing. And guys, this is the problem, is that no one's being outright and direct as to what Trump is doing here. They are trying to soften it. We all know who Trump is. This isn't about those small possible handful of who may have been wrongfully caught up. This is just like the pardons he did for the January 6th rioters. How many people do they think, wrongfully got caught up? If 1,600 people were pardoned, right, who were arrested, how many possibly people who were wrongfully, 5, 10, handful of people? 1.8 billion? This doesn't make sense. This is a reward to those very same people who Trump pardoned. And it's why Trump wants control of who gets the money and who doesn't, and wants control of who gets to be on this panel. Like, Trump has never done the right thing in his damn life. We're really talking about this like if this has anything to do with injustices. This is about paying off cultists. Anyone with a effing brain can see this. Just like going after Comey, Letitia James, I mean, a very known
childcare or daycare.
Yeah, that I can only deal with self-righteousness. Only I can't deal with that much self-righteousness. Hey, Brian. Hey, Yeti. Welcome to Stanley versus the World. Everybody, please make sure you hit the like button. If you are new to the show, please subscribe to the show. Who knows? You may like it. Maybe not. One never knows. Support the show by supporting the host. I want to thank the the patron of the Saturday show, Lucas Reigen. And then he joins CKJ3 as an executive producer. They were very, very supportive of the show. Very, very supportive of the show. I absolutely appreciate it. We will definitely get some newspaper and Substack subscriptions, as well as the YouTube, the premium payment. Yeah, between the two of them, they pretty much covered quite a bit of show expenses. So salute to those gentlemen. I'm still trying to fathom why there isn't more pushback from MAGA. This is just egregious. Creating a 1.8 billion slush fund. I think Trump is setting a bad precedent here. Well, actually, maybe it's a good precedent, because if criminals can be compensated, why not descendants of slaves? He might actually be paving the way.
So I think there are a lot of, and now you have on top of that the gas crisis, where people are paying, over $1.50 than they were before the war started. So I think when you look at this giant slush fund of money, I think people are going to look at that and say, well, what about me? What can the government do for me? And this is not going to benefit people. So I think
when did he say we can't afford Medicare or Medicaid?
He said they've cut it, and he also
for non-citizens.
We
can't afford it. For
so he did say
we can't
that we cannot afford Medicare and Medicaid, and that should be pushed to the states to pay for, and that the federal government could.
Guys, I have to do it, don't I? DJ Poppy, hit that track.
To make up, but it's not possible for us to take care of daycare, Medicaid, Medicare, all these individual things. They can do it on a state basis. You can't do it on a federal. We have to take care of one thing: military protection. We have to guard the country. But all these little things, all these little scams that have taken place, you have to.
But he did also say that the federal government cannot afford daycare and childcare for millions of families all around the country. So I think when you look at a slush fund of this magnitude, people rightfully are thinking that's absolutely egregious. I mean, it is.
But does everybody here agree generally that it is possible for the federal government and the Department of Justice to make a mistake?
Absolutely.
Sure. Yes.
But not just a mistake, it can be chronic. It can be institutional.
I totally agree with you. So if we all agree that mistakes can be made,
that's right.
Do we all also agree that maybe it ought to be there ought to be a way for people to address those mistakes? I personally think.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I've supported reparations for Black people for the last 50 years.
Transparency and a board that's not appointed by the president.
That's what the argument is.
Well, I mean.
What do you mean, why? Like, it's not an impartial board.
Why would the executive branch not be involved in the administration of it?
Oh, no. Come on. Put me on this panel. Corner Scott and say, you're right, Scott. Now, are you for reparations for Black people who are descendants of the enslaved? Ay, Papito, Brother Cornell West, you had him there. Because surely, I'm willing to say, maybe there were some who were wrongfully caught up in all of this.
That's Dr. West to you.
In a world of numbers, anything is possible, Poppy, right? But surely an injustice like slavery, segregation, Jim Crow, redlining, and on, surely, I mean, those must be a massive.
Let me make one point. So I think that this argument that no one's a slave, let's just skip over the slavery part. Jim Crow. It is a provable point that generational wealth was interrupted by the system of Jim Crow. Bruce's Beach is just but one example, etc. We need to be concentrating on Jim Crow because there are still people alive. I was born in 1965. right at the very end of legal Jim Crow. That's what we need to be concentrating on, because no one can dispute the generational wealth that was lost, interrupted, never allowed to blossom. Very easy to prove that part.
Well, of course, Scott, you would be for reparations for black people, right? Punk ass? Like, at least some form of reparation? No. You wouldn't go around with Republicans crying, calling it anti-white, right? Woke. DEI on steroids. Surely you wouldn't call it that, right? I mean, come on, guys. That was a layup. You have to see those openings and pounce on these idiots.
If it's coming out of the Department of Justice.
I think what you were arguing was transparency, so that we know where the money goes.
Yeah.
because
I
it
agree
is
with that.
taxpayer
Right.
dollars.
So if you know where the money goes and you know what the details of the cases are, then maybe you could pick each individual case apart. Peter is right. There were some people who did terrible things, committing violence against cops, terrible. But there were some people who got swept up in things, dramatically overcharged, and they weren't treated the same as people who got into similar situations under other administrations. That's absolutely also true. Should they not have a way to get their lives back?
But it's also true that the first act that this man did as president is issue a blanket amnesty and pardon for all of them. Not look at it case by case, not look at the ones that have been violent against police, which you say you condemn, but do it in a blanket fashion. And so that's not a good precedent for somebody who wants to issue reparations to people from January 6th.
I mean, they have been pardoned, so technically they could file for this and potentially get money, and there's a lot there. So we'll have to wait and see what this happens. But if we don't know who's getting it, then no one's going to understand exactly who is getting a piece of the pie. There's a lot of questions here. I think
transparency. We haven't even talked about the constitutionality of it. You alluded to it. Congress has the power of the purse.
It is a question. It is a question. Agreed.
It's a big one. All right, we all agree on that one thing. So I'm going to leave it right there. Next, the president.
I mean, guys, Trump called these people that he pardoned, the 1,600 people wrongfully convicted American patriots. So think about it. Why wouldn't they be applying for this fund, and why wouldn't Trump approve it? He already said they were wrongfully.
I actually probably one of the best parts of the American legal system is trial by jury. If a jury convicts you, now, of course, evidence can be fabricated, juries can be misled and all that stuff. But by and large, if you get convicted by a jury of your peers, I rarely have a problem with the results. If these January 6th people were convicted by a jury of their peers, then sorry, that's it. Now, I'm sure there are always exceptions to the rule, et cetera, but still, Trump interfering with the justice system the way he has weakened the Department of Justice. It is literally, he's ruining the Justice Department, kind of like one of the crown jewels, that in the State Department. The dude is a menace, and MAGA needs to be unelected.
Mistreated or convicted or whatever. Like, again, we all know what this is about, and it pisses me off that this panel talks about it like it isn't a straight off payoff to these traitors of this nation. I get the argument. Some literally a handful may have been wrongfully caught up in this. Fine, a handful. $1.8 billion is not a handful. My argument also is that we know Trump isn't looking to be empathetic to those who were caught up. Rather show his loyalty and to pay those guys back who helped him in a failed coup attempt of the U.S. government. My fuck. Sorry, I said I wasn't going to curse anymore. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Please leave a like, subscribe. Really helps the channel. Really helps push the message out there. And I'll catch you in the next one. All right?
All right. Well, let us
Welcome to
move
Advisory
on.
Opinions. I'm Sarah Isger. That's
Ooh.
David French.
Yep. Well, we'll get to that fairly quickly. So Trump's $1.8 billion fund tests constitutional limits. The deal that the president reached with his own subordinates relies on a mechanism created by Congress that legal experts had warned was subject to manipulation. If there is a silver lining to this Trump administration, is he has exposed all the weak points in democratic norms and laws. I think, as I said yesterday, Democrats need to run on a platform of reject and repair. Reject what MAGA has done to this country, repair the damage, and fix the weak points. Caulk it, caulk the cracks, whatever you have to do. Thank you, Trump, for exposing many weaknesses in America's legal system, the constitutional system, all that stuff. Reject and repair. That needs to be the main goal of Democrats. So, acting AG insists rioter violence will be considered by new anti-weaponization fund commission. Well, let's see if this will play.
You're the nation's top law enforcement official right now. Would
For
you be
now.
okay with people who were convicted of hurting police getting taxpayer money?
Just to be clear, people that hurt police get money all the time. Okay, there's a process where if you believe you have your rights violated, you can apply for funds, you can sue, you can file a claim, you can go to court. In some of those cases, the state, the government, the federal government settles those cases. It's abhorrent to ever touch a law enforcement officer, which is why anytime anybody does that and it's a federal officer, we'll prosecute them. But that's a completely different question with whether an individual is allowed to apply for a claim. Whether they'll get a claim, depends. I can't, it would not be appropriate for me to talk about absolutes, like absolutely not, under no circumstances. I mean, we can talk about hypotheticals till we're blue in the face, but that really wouldn't be fruitful.
Alrighty, let's see what else is here. I think there's another little clip here. Let's play this one.
There's nothing that's not transparent about this process. One of the factors the commissioners have to consider is what the claimant did, the claimant's conduct, okay? So in the hypothetical you just described, the claimant would have to say, I assaulted a cop and I want money. So whether the commissioners will give that person money, that claimant, it's up to them. But that's one of the factors they have to consider for the very reason that was raised yesterday, which should be raised, which is that President Trump, this Department of Justice, does not stand for assaulting law enforcement, and the kind of fake outrage at this because there's a handful of folks who might apply. By the way, nobody's received money. Nobody's applied yet. We don't even have commissioners. So we're talking about a hypothetical scenario that hasn't even presented itself yet, except for the fact that the agreement makes plain that the commissioners have a bunch of factors they have to consider: expenses, how much money they want, what the claimant did, the claimant's conduct. And so that's something that we will pick good commissioners, and that's something that they will take into account.
Yeah, I don't trust the corrupt. So speaking of Todd Blanche, U.S. indicts Cuba's Raul Castro on murder and conspiracy charges for downing of planes in 1996. Dude, yeah. Whoops. Let me start this from the beginning.
Today,
we are announcing an indictment charging Raul Castro and several others with conspiracy to kill U.S. nationals. Mr. Castro and the others are charged with additional crimes as well, including destruction of aircraft and 4 individual counts of murder. The indictment was returned by a grand jury sitting in this district in Miami on April 23rd, 2026, and was unsealed today. For nearly 30 years, the families of 4 murdered Americans have waited for justice. On February, this is a story all too familiar. On February 24th, 1996, 2 civilian aircraft operated by Brothers to the Rescue were shot down over international waters by military aircraft from Cuba. 4 men were killed: Carlos Costa, Armando Alejandre Jr., Mario de la Peña, and Pablo Morales. They were unarmed civilians and were flying humanitarian missions for the rescue and protection of people fleeing oppression across the Florida Straits. As alleged in the indictment, Raul Castro and 5 co-defendants participated in a conspiracy that ended with Cuban military aircraft firing missiles at those civilian planes and killing 4 Americans. Those are the allegations returned by a federal grand jury. My message today is clear. The United States and President Trump does not and will not forget its citizens.
Khan, you and I thoroughly disagree about what the deep state is. You mean the administrative state? Trump has done nothing of the kind. The deep state, it's a conspiracy theory. The American government is what it is. If there's a deep state, it's the billionaire class. It's people like Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Bezos, etc. It's the billionaire class that is actually the deep state. Doge was deep state. It was created. It's a MAGA creation. Before Doge, there wasn't a deep state. Maybe you could argue the military industrial complex is kind of a deep state, but Trump has done nothing but ruin a good thing. It was imperfect, of course, but Trump has not helped matters. He has not pulled back a curtain on anything other than the weak spots that he has manipulated to his own advantage. Suing the fucking IRS for $10 billion and then settling before the judge was going to throw the case out to create a slush fund, and Trump family members cannot be investigated for fraud by the IRS. Trump is the deep state.
I want to say that we also do not forget the families, the loved ones, and the friends who have carried grief and heartache for 30 years. For the first time in nearly 70 years, senior leadership of the Cuban regime has been charged in this country, in the United States of America, for acts of violence resulting in the deaths of American citizens. Nations and their leaders cannot be permitted to target Americans, kill them, and not face accountability. President Trump is committed to restoring a very simple but important principle. If you kill Americans, we will pursue you, no matter who you are, no matter what title you hold, and in this case, no matter how much time has passed. I want to thank, and everybody in this room should thank, the FBI, the prosecutors, and the agents who worked on this matter. It includes the intelligence community and our federal and state law enforcement partners. They did the work here, so thank you. There's a reason why myself and the senator and other leadership are here and not in Washington, D.C. to announce this indictment. The community here, you all, understands the history of the Cuban regime better than anyone in America. Many families here know the cost of oppression. I've heard stories over the past week and past months, every one of them heartbreaking. They know that the pain caused by the regime did not stop at the island's shores. And today's indictment, while it does not bring back the murdered victims, it makes a statement. The United States government has not forgotten these innocent men who were shot out of the sky. And as in every criminal case, the defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty by a jury of their peers. But today, the Department of Justice has taken an important step and brought this indictment. I'm proud to stand here on this podium with U.S. Attorney Jason Redding Quinones to my right, Chris Rea, Deputy Director of the FBI. You're gonna get to clap. You're gonna get to clap for Jason in 20 seconds. Chris Rea, Deputy Director of the FBI, and James Utheimer, the Attorney General of this great state. And your great U.S. Senator is here as well. She's very busy in D.C., but wouldn't miss this for the world. So thank you for being here, Senator Moody. So I want to thank Jason for his leadership down here in Florida. He's doing a great job beyond today, and I'd also ask him to replace me at the podium to say a few words. So thank you, Jason, very much.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. It may sound a little repetitive, some of the things we're saying, but they're worthy of saying twice, 3 times, 100 times. So bear with us. For nearly 70 years, the communist Cuban regime has acted with impunity in its systematic repression of its people. And for the last 30 years, this regime's senior leadership has gone unchallenged for its murder of 4 Americans. Today, the United States announces a historic indictment charging Raul Castro and 5 co-defendants for their roles in the February 24th, 1996 shootdown of 2 brothers to the rescue.
You know what? We get the message. I think it's a total waste of time. Raul Castro's like 90 some years old. What are they going to do? Apparently this is the prelude to invading Cuba, who's out of oil. Dude, Trump is just goddamn. I cannot wait till this is over. Trump is the embodiment of a long national nightmare. Trump says they can build a 250-foot arch without Congress's approval. Can they? Dude, this motherfucker is a megalomaniac. Why Trump can't reopen the Strait of Hormuz without NATO mine hunters.
Iran's closure of one of the world's busiest maritime choke points has exposed an uncomfortable reality for Washington. The U.S. Navy, the world's most powerful, cannot reopen the Strait of Hormuz on its own. Lethal Iranian mines, the Maham, Sadaf, MDM, and EM-52, were seated across the floor of the strait, waiting silently beneath the world's most strategic waterway. Around 2 weeks after the U.S. and Israel first launched strikes on Tehran on February 28th. Now, Donald Trump is faced with an awkward problem. European navies, operating far smaller fleets than the U.S., have spent decades investing in the mine warfare assets that America allowed to gather dust after the Cold War. As pressure mounts on Washington to reopen global energy flows, the U.S. president may be forced to depend on the more sophisticated mine-hunting capabilities of NATO allies, whose navies he and his administration have mocked. The U.S. has not publicly disclosed how many mines Iran has laid, what types are now in the water, or how widely they are dispersed across the narrow shipping lanes connecting the Gulf to the Arabian Sea. In a private briefing to Congress, Pentagon officials estimated that fully clearing Iranian mines from the strait could take as long as 6 months. Mine clearance is unforgiving because it is painfully slow. You have to sanitize roughly 200 square miles, Kevin Eyre, a retired U.S. Navy captain and director of training at the U.S. Naval Mine and Anti-Submarine Warfare Command, told The Telegraph. That's a big ocean to clear. The United States is in the process of replacing its aging fleet of Avenger-class mine countermeasure ships with newer littoral combat ships equipped with unmanned systems that detect and neutralize mines from a safe distance. However, the new systems have never been tested in real-world conditions, let alone used in combat. The United States has indeed upgraded its mine countermeasures capability, but it's a very nascent capability, an allied, official, with knowledge of NATO's mine warfare capabilities.
I think I've told folks my first ship was a minesweeper, and you cannot believe how technical it is. Laying out a minefield and sweeping it. I literally did it in the Persian Gulf. Well, me and the cat. I was the operations officer. So I've literally navigated through minefields. It's a very methodical process. It is very time consuming. It is very tedious. And the way we did it was detecting mines and sending EOD divers down to evaluate. The funny thing, and I've said this before, the Persian Gulf is literally a fucking junkyard. Dude, they just dump trash like you would not believe. And trash bags look like mines. It's weird, but most of the contacts we had were trash bags, but we found a couple mines. And you want to be about 2 nautical miles away when you detonate them because they're pretty ugly. But that the U.S. let this capability wither on the vine is disgusting. Mines are like low tech, but they're a bitch.
Told The Telegraph. Europe currently possesses more robust capabilities and mature operational experience, particularly Baltic and North Sea navies, the source added. The Europeans have the lion's share of the capability in the context of the alliance, they said. The irony is difficult to ignore. Mr. Trump has repeatedly criticized NATO allies for depending too heavily on American military power and scoffed at their naval capabilities. He has reserved particular ire for Britain. Furious with allies' refusal to send warships to the Strait in April, Mr. Trump dismissed Royal Navy aircraft carriers as toys and described UK warships as old. Pete Hegseth, Mr. Trump's defense secretary, has accused European allies of being freeloaders and ridiculed British and French-led efforts to establish an international coalition to reopen the strait. Their bravado ignores a troubling reality. For decades, the U.S. concentrated spending on nuclear submarines, carrier aviation, and Aegis destroyers while allowing much of its dedicated mine warfare capability to age out. The U.S. Avenger-class vessels, delicate wooden-hulled ships designed to minimize magnetic signatures, were first commissioned in the late 1980s and 1990s. Most have been retired, cannibalized for parts, or set for the scrapyard. Some are considered so fragile that they would probably need to be transported aboard heavy-lift ships. Washington's allies in Europe, especially those operating in the Baltic and North Sea, took a different approach. Britain, Germany, Finland, the Netherlands, and others continued investing in specialist mine hunters because they viewed Russian naval activity and the threat of confined water warfare as an enduring strategic danger. There has been a tacit agreement with NATO for some time that in the event of a mine catastrophe, NATO will be providing the anti-mine capability that would be needed, Captain Arce said. Mr. Arce's mine warfare steadily lost prestige in the U.S. Navy after the Cold War. The problem now is we retired a lot of capability before the replacement capability was fully mature. The consequences are becoming quite apparent. The U.S. Navy also decommissioned and removed all of its MH-53EC Dragon airborne mine-clearing helicopters from Bahrain in 2025 as part of a broader shift toward unmanned mine warfare systems. At the time, experts warned that this would remove one of the few proven rapid clearance capabilities permanently stationed near the Gulf. Now, with the strait effectively closed and pressure mounting to reopen global energy flows, NATO allies are beginning to move mine warfare assets toward the region. An allied official noted that any mission would probably be conducted by individual nations or a coalition rather than under formal NATO command. On Tuesday, it was reported that NATO countries were discussing helping ships to pass through the Strait of Hormuz if it is not reopened by July. A French carrier strike group, a British destroyer, and Italian minesweepers are currently in operation or are heading to the Middle East. Germany is also repositioning assets for a potential international operation, dispatching the mine hunter Fulda. The UK said it will offer autonomous mine hunters and military divers as part of a proposed multinational mission to safeguard the strait. All have said such help will be contingent on a definitive end to the fighting. To help reopen the waterway, it is increasingly clear that Washington needs to rely heavily on such assistance. In the meantime, two Japan-based Avenger-class mine hunters, USS Pioneer and USS Chief, have been deployed from the Western Pacific and are reported lumbering through the Indian Ocean on their way to the Gulf. Both vessels.
But those are the Pioneer and the Chief. They're not excuse me. I need to look those up. I don't think they're actual MCMs, but I could be wrong. I thought they were tugs, actually. They're diver platforms. But I could be wrong. You know, some ships have been decommissioned and new ships renamed.
Would probably require extensive maintenance and heavy support from NATO mine hunters and underwater drones, said Stephen Wills, former chief engineer aboard the Avenger-class USS Patriot and naval analyst at the Center for Maritime Strategy.
So we still
the last
have
time
the
such
Avenger
mine
class.
hunters
Interesting.
conducted real-world operations was during the 2003 invasion of Iraq, he said. Coalition forces had to tackle hundreds of Iraqi mines spread across Kuwaiti waters and the northern Gulf. With the fragile
okay.
Cold War-era ships sailing for the strait and newer U.S. assets lacking any real wartime experience, it is running out of options. The crisis has exposed a deeper strategic vulnerability at the heart of American war planning. The U.S. underestimated Iran's ability to close the strait, and overestimated its own ability to clear it.
What's
Sign
up,
up to the
Dirty?
front page newsletter for free. Your essential guide to the day's agenda from the Telegraph. Direct to your inbox 7.
I thought, as it turns out, the Pioneer is a MCM. I've these came out. I was still in the Navy when the first of these were built. I've been on one, but I've never served on one. I actually loved the Minesweeper. It was a small crew, about 100 people, and it was really an experience, a good one. So anyway, let us move on. More war stuff. Top U.S. commander in the Middle East says he needs more bunker busters because everybody's going underground.
Admiral Brad Cooper said CENTCOM needs more weapons for deeply buried targets. He said U.S. adversaries are increasingly moving key assets underground. The U.S. first used GBU 57 bunker busters in combat against Iran last year. The top U.S. commander overseeing forces in the Middle East says he needs more weapons for striking hardened targets buried deep underground. The U.S. used its largest conventional bunker buster bombs against Iranian nuclear facilities last year, underscoring a challenge military leaders say is only growing. Adversaries are increasingly putting key military sites, weapons, and command infrastructure underground to shield them from attack. At a U.S. House Armed Services Committee hearing on Tuesday, Admiral Brad Cooper, head of U.S. Central Command, told lawmakers he had a wish list of weapons and capabilities he wants more of. I'd put 3 things: more electronic warfare, keep counter-UAS, uncrewed aerial systems on the leading edge, because tactics are changing very quickly, he said, and we need to invest more in hard and deeply buried targets, specifically the weapons and other capabilities for finding and striking underground sites. Everybody is going underground, he said. Iran has buried many of its most prized military assets, including nuclear sites, underground to protect them from missile strikes. Last year, the U.S. launched Operation Midnight Hammer, a strike operation against 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. U.S. forces conducted 3 massive attacks on Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, and in the process, American bombers dropped the GBU 57 massive ordnance penetrator bunker buster bomb for the first time in combat. 14 GBU 57s in total were released during the strikes on Iranian facilities. These bombs are among the heaviest and most powerful non-nuclear bombs in the U.S. arsenal. Each munition weighs roughly 30,000 pounds and can only be carried by the U.S. Air Force's B-2 Spirit bomber. The B-2 can carry 2 internally. The B-2's successor, the B-21 Raider, is expected to carry only 1. The GBU 57 is designed to penetrate deep into the ground, up to 200 feet, before exploding, though the depth depends on the strength of the material, such as reinforced concrete, that it's hitting. The U.S. also has smaller bunker busters it can use, but these...
Yeah, I'll go ahead and stop this here. I don't know that we need that level of detail. This was actually interesting. This is from the Boston Globe. Father, teen son fishing off Martha's Vineyard, detained by Coast Guard, transferred to ICE custody. So a Brazilian father and son who live on Martha's Vineyard were detained by the U.S. Coast Guard while fishing offshore Monday, transferred to the custody of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, according to family, friends, and court documents. Rogério da Silva Lima, who works for a local business owner, and Nicholas de Baringa Lima, 15, a student at Martha's Vineyard Regional High, are originally from Brazil. They're being held at an immigration facility in Burlington, I guess, Vermont, and are facing a transfer to Texas. We've never seen the Coast Guard take this kind of measure. Alexis Moraes, a tribal council member with the Chappaquiddick Wampanoag tribe, which is working to intervene on the father and son's behalf, told the Globe Wednesday, "We see it as an abuse. There is clear profiling going on of who is actively practicing fishing, profiling while fishing. Interesting. This to us is more than offensive. Now you cannot go fishing without being profiled and deported. Neither the Coast Guard nor ICE officials immediately responded to requests for comment Tuesday evening. A family friend took the father and son out on his boat early Monday for the first offshore fishing trip. The friend, who asked not to be named, told the Globe in a telephone interview Tuesday evening they were angling for bass about 1.5 miles off of Menimsha near Chilmark when the Coast Guard approached for a routine safety check. They were allowed to return to fishing, but the Coast Guard returned 2 more times, asked for documentation, and detained the father and son. Wow. The Vineyard Gazette was the first to report on the incident. Nicholas was so panicked and nervous during the encounter with the Coast Guard that he couldn't spell his name, and their friend had to do it for him. The friend told the Globe. Wow. Immigration officials shackled the teen's feet together when they arrived to transport him. Damn. When the friend spoke to De Silva Lima and Nicholas late Monday after they arrived in Burlington, they said immigration officials told them they were going to be taken to Texas. Damn. Wow. Take your passport with you when you're fishing, folks. All right. Senate advances bill aimed at ending Iran war as Cassidy, after primary loss, flips to support. I did talk about this yesterday. It's a dead letter. It's not going anywhere. Barney Frank. Barney Frank was like a big deal in the House of Representatives, I guess back in the 80s and 90s. Liberal icon who regulated a too big financial industry dies at 86. So I bet many of you young folks don't remember Barney Frank, but he was a big deal back then. U.S. House passes housing affordability bill. On Wednesday, the House passed the 21st Century Road to Housing Act with a 396-13 vote, aiming to curb institutional investors from purchasing single-family homes. Too little, too late. It is a menace. On my particular street, there are like 2 homes side by side that are owned and rented out. Yeah, it needs to, like I said, it's too little, too late. Trump wants to stop tracking job data by race and sex. This is why. Let's see here. What is this? I guess we should listen to this.
Some of the biggest companies in the U.S., from Walmart to Meta Platforms, have rolled back their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, known as DEI, even before President Donald Trump signed executive orders to scrap such programs.
We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based.
Reuters reviewed company reports and filings made to the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and found that Meta, Walmart, Amazon, Starbucks, Deere & Co., Ford, Boeing, McDonald's, Lowe's, and most recently Target either scaled back or abandoned their diversity initiatives last year. Only 4 of those companies managed to increase the proportion of female staff since 2020. But the increases have been slight, including in middle management. Data showed Hispanic and Black women remained largely underrepresented. At Amazon, the proportion of female mid-level managers had risen from 29.5% in 2020 to 32% in 2023. Amazon shared an internal memo sent to employees in December about winding down outdated DEI programs, but said it still remained steadfast in creating a diverse and inclusive company. At Meta and Ford, the proportion of female mid-level personnel fell in the same time period. Meta, which confirmed to Reuters it's scaling back its DEI programs, said equal opportunity data was affected by layoffs. While anti-DEI activists argued these initiatives give people of minority backgrounds an unfair advantage, advocates fear the rollbacks will prompt companies to lapse back into inequality. Some of the biggest companies in the U.S.
So essentially, what Trump wants to do, he wants to stop tracking job data by race and sex. Dude, this dude is
Just how diverse
heinous.
is corporate America? For decades, it has been the federal government's job to keep track. Each year, major companies submit a breakdown of employees by race and gender in a form popularly known as an.
Let me also say, not tracking this data is also anti-intellectualism. If you're not tracking this data, you can't identify problems. And who knows what the problems might be in the future. Dude is a dummy, and I agree with Dirty Dude. This dude is literally trashing America. It's like anti-intellectualism gone wild. It's just, hopefully we can recover from this monster.
As an EO, one report. Since the 1960s, this trove of demographic data has been instrumental in spotting patterns of discrimination and supporting civil rights investigations in the workplace. Not for much longer. The Trump administration has signaled it's putting a stop to it as part of its diversity, equity, and inclusion reforms. Start the day smarter. Get all the news you need in your inbox each morning. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission notified the White House last week that it plans to eliminate the reporting requirement for corporations as well as labor unions, state and local governments, apprenticeship programs, and schools, marking a significant escalation in the fight over corporate diversity. In recent years, EO1 data gave Americans greater visibility into how level the playing field is in their workplace, and critics warn cutting off this information flow will make it harder for corporations and regulators to gauge that. The Trump White House argues this is just the latest in a series of necessary steps to unwind Biden-era policies that unfairly promoted favored groups over others. Federal contractors made DI pledges. They didn't keep them. Representative Lauren Underwood, Democrat Illinois, attempted to amend an appropriations bill to require that EOC fund the collection of employee demographic information, but the effort was rebuffed without Republican support. Information tracking the state of diversity in the American workplace won't go away entirely. States like California and Illinois still require employers to submit workforce demographics reports. If the federal government stops collecting EO1 data, more states may enact similar reporting requirements. But little else stands in the EOC's way, legal observers say. After 60 years, EO1 reporting seems likely to come to an end sometime over the next few years, the Littler law firm said in a blog post. One of the most consequential civil rights reversals. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 outlawed employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin and established the EOC to enforce these new laws. But the new federal agency lacked concrete data to identify patterns of job discrimination and segregation based on race, ethnicity, and sex. So the EOC used its power under the Civil Rights Act to mandate that companies with 100 or more employees and federal contractors with 50 or more employees fill out standardized reports with concrete demographic data. The public had scant access to these reports until the 2020 police killing of George Floyd, when corporations began voluntarily releasing more information in the face of growing pressure from investors and customers and inquiries from news organizations like USA Today. 3/4 of S&P 500 companies disclosed EO1 data for 2022 and 2023, according to Josh Raymer, founder of People Return, which provides data and research on workforce trends in public companies. But corporations retreated as the DI backlash accelerated when President Donald Trump took office for his second term. In 2024, the latest year for which EO1 data is available, that figure dropped to about 57%, Raymer said. The widely anticipated announcement that the EOC would cease collecting the data drew a swift rebuke from the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. The research organization focused on issues affecting Black Americans said the loss of data could be one of the most consequential civil rights reversals of this era. Is DI illegal? Democrats challenge FCC diversity probes. For generations, America's civil rights framework has operated on a simple premise: inequality can be measured. Mortgage lending disparities, redlining, employment discrimination, unequal access to capital. None of these were exposed because institutions voluntarily admitted wrongdoing. They were uncovered because data was collected, analyzed, and tested in courts, it wrote. Data does not predetermine outcomes. It does not guarantee discrimination claims succeed. It just allows society to see. And increasingly, that visibility itself appears to be what is under attack. Proponents say enforcement agencies like the EEOC rely on EO1 data to know where to focus their limited resources. Employers use it to identify major gaps in their workforce and barriers to equal opportunity. Without this data, the EOC loses its most basic tool needed to do its job, said fairness, access, inclusion, and representation strategist Lily Zhang, author of Reconstructing DI. Chai Feldblum, a former EOC commissioner, argued the absence of EO1 data will weaken the federal government's ability to enforce anti-discrimination laws. The EOC did not respond to a request for comment. The EOC's data collection has been crucial for understanding what works and what fails to produce equal employment opportunity in both employers' and regulators' efforts, Donald Thomas Govik-Devi, a sociology professor who runs the Center for Employment Equity at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, told USA.
Yep, we probably have the the gist of this now. Again, anti-intellectual. The democracy dies in darkness, and Trump and MAGA are literally trying to turn out the lights so no one sees what's going on. It is anti-transparency not to collect data so you know what's going on in the job market. So former Atlanta mayor wins Democratic primary for Georgia governor. So I guess Keisha Lance Bottoms is going to be running. I don't think it's either between like Burt Jones and God damn it, I can't remember who his main person is. His main rival, I think maybe it's Dooley, Vince Dooley's son, who's a former University of Georgia coach. So we'll see how it goes. I would not count her out though. For some reason or another, she's pretty popular. But you know, it's a long shot. But who knows? Trump is not popular. All right, so Trump phones. Oh, damn it. My computer just locked up. Give me a second, folks. Sorry about this. Oh, thanks, Dirty. Yeah, I'm definitely going to watch it. I'm sorry. I was on air like for like 12 hours or something, and then I did a show this morning, and I didn't know whether I was going to even do a show today, so I slept till like 4 o'clock. You know, I'm keeping like you remember the overnight show? You know, I've been keeping those hours. I don't know. I think I'd still like that afternoon drive the afternoon drive hours. I'm not so sure that I'm liking these late hours, because once I get to having fun and having a couple beers, I'm just like, let's go. And I'm old. I can't be pulling these all-nighters. So give me a second. Hopefully this computer figures out what it wants to do. I guess I should have just left that article playing. Oh, come on, computer. There we go. All righty. So, Trump phones. Wait, hold it. Why is this? Oh, wow. Let us see here. Oh, I'm still having a glitch. Tell you what, let's do that. And let's do this. One sec here. Where are my Trump phones? There we are. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. My computer locked up. I'm probably going to have to get a new laptop here pretty soon. So Trump phones are finally here, and people aren't happy. Imagine that. Something that Trump did working? Why should we ever expect that sort of thing?
The Trump phone has arrived after months of delays, but many customers have been left unhappy over concerns about where it was manufactured, the design, and its features. Putting America first. When Trump Mobile, the wireless phone carrier partly launched by President Donald Trump's sons Don Jr. and Eric, announced plans for the T1 phone back in June 2025. It was pitched as a new kind of smartphone that seemed in line with the ideals of America first. The T1 phone would be gold-colored, emblazoned with the American flag, and available for just $499. That made it considerably more affordable than the latest models of Apple iPhone, which retail for anywhere between $800 and $1,200. It was also positioned as an all-American alternative to the likes of Apple and Samsung, both of whom manufacture handsets outside of the US. The T1 phone would be different, with early messaging indicating it would be proudly designed and built in the United States for customers who expect the best. Hundreds of thousands of people paid a $100 deposit to pre-order one of the Trump phones, which were originally slated for an August/September 2025 release. That's when the issues began. Newsweek has contacted the Trump Organization for comment. Shaped by American innovation. The subsequent launch of the T1 phone was repeatedly delayed over the months that followed, with the Trump administration citing the 43-day shutdown of the federal government as a key factor. The delay was not the only cause for concern. Once billed as being made in America, the Trump phone website now described the phone as being shaped by American innovation, as first reported by The Verge. Though Eric Trump, vice president of the Trump Organization, said in a recent interview that the plan is for, eventually all the phones will be built in the United States. It's a significant departure from the original American-made plans. Mediaite also reported on the discovery of several significant changes to the pre-order terms. In one section, titled No Guarantee of Release, Delivery, or Timing, the website said that estimated ship dates Launch timelines or anticipated production schedule are non-binding estimates only. The terms also included the warning, Trump Mobile does not guarantee that the device will be commercially released. Regulatory approvals, including FCC authorization, will be obtained. Carrier certification will be secured. Production will commence or continue, or delivery will occur within any specific time frame. The T1 phone has arrived. Earlier this month, Trump Mobile finally announced it would begin shipping the T1 phones. The T1 phone has arrived, a message posted to Trump Mobile's Instagram, Facebook, and X account said. Those who pre-ordered the T1 phone will be receiving an update email. Phones start shipping this week. Even then, the announcement was not without a minor hiccup. The video posted to X ended up being flagged as AI with a community note stating that the US flag that appears in the video has 11 then 9 stripes, while the back texture of the device shown was inconsistent. Nevertheless, after a 9-month delay, anticipation of what to expect was high among the first wave of pre-sale customers receiving the T1 phone. However, if the initial responses are anything to go by, the Trump phone has not been well received. The American flag. One of the most glaring issues highlighted on X was the fact the American flag on the new Trump mobile phone has 11 stripes. The American flag is supposed to feature 13 stripes, each representing the original 13 colonies that declared independence from Britain in 1776.
These dumb fucks can't even get the American flag right. God damn. Talk about incompetence. Fuck. So this is a video, and I don't know, is Ryan Bardwell still here? I bet he's not. Nope, doesn't seem like he's here. Well, this is guaranteed to piss some MAGA folks off. So welcome to Stanley versus the world, folks. Please make sure you hit the like button. Please, if you are new to this show, you must subscribe. We love Trump bashing here, and we do it with joy and finesse, and occasionally we're bawdy about how incompetent this Trump administration is. The dude is a moron. Loyalty matters more than competence in this Trump administration. It's disgusting. It's ruining America, and it will take us decades to recover from this abomination of an administration. So support the show. Even if you're MAGA, we have PayPal now, so foreigners can contribute to the mayhem. We will take your lira. We will take your pesos. We will take your Deutschmarks, your British sterling, whatever you got. PayPal can handle it. Let's see what else. Let us thank our Saturday sponsor so far. Oh, by the way, the Sovereign Beer Fund is open. It is Wednesday. So Sovereign Beer Fund is open for investment as well. Come one, come all. Let's see here. Saturday show sponsored by Lupin Reiking. And we should thank our executive producers for the month, VCKJ3 and Lupin Reiking. It's their fault. So let's see here. Let me copy and paste this. Cancel. All right. Well, let's play this video. It's a good old lefty conversation. And by the way, Joyce Vance, I adore this woman. Oops.
Love her. If you don't know her, what are you doing? Go subscribe to her fantabulous Substack, Civil Discourse. Buy her book. Joyce, shamelessly promote the book.
My book, I wrote a book called Giving Up is Unforgivable, a manual for keeping a democracy. And I will just say that I've been pleased by how well it's aged. I think its recommendations for the role that we should all play as citizens has held up nicely, which is to say Donald Trump has just been the really horrible president I envisioned he would be when I wrote the book in January of 2025.
Oh, look, a whole book of I Told You So. Run out and buy her book, folks.
And she's also a former U.S. attorney and current law professor at the fantastic University of Alabama. And she wrote this piece. And folks, the timing of it is chef's kiss. I hope she was, I wish she was wrong. Sadly, she isn't. The piece is on kleptocracy. And the framing of today is American kleptocracy is upon us. Before we talk about literally, you can't make this ish up. It's like textbook. What's happening right now. Can you define kleptocracy for people?
Yeah, kleptocracy is government that instead of being run in the best tradition of a democracy as something that works for the people, is a government that's run for the benefit of its leaders. So in other words, its leaders are stealing from you all the time. And I often speak in terms of kleptocracy, which is corrupt government, and kakistocracy, which is incompetent government, which was really what we saw during the first Trump administration. It was their incompetence.
So basically, it's KK, and then let's just add another K for the racists. So it's KKK.
Saved us. Unfortunately, this go round, it seems to be a more professional, streamlined operation.
And you could say it's both, right? It's like a kleptocracy and a kakistocracy and a right-wing authoritarian regime playing for all the marbles, promoting white nationalist conspiracy theories. It's all of the above, folks. But what made you write the article that says, okay, now it's kleptocracy?
You know, that's not a new theme for me, but what made me write the piece, and at the top I said, and of course I won't be able to quote myself because like all of you guys that are here, none of us sleeps enough anymore, right? But I said something like, you know, when there's a whole lot of bad, everything is bad. We can no longer filter and process it because we're surrounded by so much bad stuff. And what's going on with Trump and this $1.776 billion, 1776, right? You can't miss that date there. With this little slush fund that they've been creating out of money that Congress sends to the Justice Department to resolve legitimate claims against the Justice Department, the settlement fund, now being used by Donald Trump as his personal slush fund. The whole notion that something like that could happen is the very epitome of corruption, right? Of kleptocracy. This is a president using taxpayer money that you and I send to Washington every year to pay off his cronies.
And it's so, I mean, there's even when we go back the last week and look at the news items, there's so many egregious examples of insider trading, corruption, self-dealing, conflict of interest, things that we could never imagine. But this, I think, Joyce, is like cherry on top. This is them mocking us. This is like the Hamburglar in broad daylight with the cameras on him. Actually, forget the cameras on him. He records himself with the GoPro, streams it, and says, I'm going to go into McDonald's. I'm going to steal the hamburgers. Oh, hey, cops. Hey, FBI. I'm going to come back for dinner at 6 p.m. I'm going to steal more hamburgers. And there's nothing you're going to do about it. And I'm going to give the hamburgers. I'm not even going to pay for the hamburgers. After people have paid the money for the hamburgers, I'm going to steal their hamburgers and take their money and then give their hamburgers to my Hamburglar friends. What you going to do about it?
I mean, I think you've absolutely nailed it. And this is something that I write about a lot on my Substack Civil Discourse in different contexts. The evil genius of this administration is finding approaches that are technically not illegal, but that no sane person, no government leader would ever do because they're so clearly wrong and clearly corrupt. And then they do the thing, right? And this is a great example. No president would ever steal from DOJ's judgment fund because no attorney general would ever let a president do that. But we've got Todd Blanche, who's auditioning for the role of permanent attorney general and has pretty much become just a complete and total yes man.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking about Todd Blanche, Did you see any glimpses or clips of the hearings today?
I watched a fair bit of it.
And to me, I mean, let's remind people, Todd Blanche started off as Donald Trump's personal attorney. Then Todd Blanche was the assistant attorney general. Then Todd Blanche, in a move that you and I believe have talked about, it wasn't Maureen Comey, the prosecutor, who went and talked to Glenn Maxwell. It was oddly Todd Blanche. Oh, why? Because Maureen Comey was fired. And then less than a week after Todd Blanche had this conversation with Glenn Maxwell gets this magical transfer that no one with her record ever gets to minimum security camp where she's getting pampered. And then Pam Bondi is exiled to the private sector where she's making a lot of money. But that's why
We know that. I haven't heard how much money she's making.
I'm very confident that she will, inshallah, land on her feet, and her feet will have the world's most expensive pedicure. I'm very
Inshallah.
confident about
Yeah.
that. And then also, then Todd Blanche now becomes her acting attorney general. And so this is a man who, it seems like, Joyce, has spent his career covering up Trump's crimes. And
You know,
now
it's bizarre because Todd Blanche started out in the Southern District of New York. He was a paralegal. He went to law school at night. That's not the usual trajectory for becoming an assistant United States attorney, especially in the Southern District. And he was so well thought of in the office that he did that nonetheless. And there's a question that I think we just don't know the answer to of what happened. You know, he had left the government. He was in private practice. He left a big storied law firm to go and become Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer, right? Not just his personal lawyer, but his criminal defense lawyer, the first president to really have one of those in a sustained fashion. And that, I think, puts all of this in context because, as you've said, Todd, who was originally the deputy attorney general in this administration, is now the acting attorney general, filling in for Bondi. And what we're watching is the longest, slowest, most painful audition to get the nomination for the permanent job that I could have ever envisioned.
And can you remind us, because this is not normal, and we'll talk about why this is not normal and why this is dangerous. What should a attorney general be doing in normal times?
Representing the people of the United States.
How does attorney general represent the people of the United States? What are his or her guidelines?
You know, what we say at DOJ is do the right thing in the right way for the right reasons. And that might sound a little bit silly, but it's actually a pretty good North Star. Because as prosecutors, we understand that our job is to enforce the law. We represent the United States when it gets sued. We collect money judgments for the government that it can't collect without going to court. But a big part of the job is criminal prosecutions. And so if you're going to prosecute people, you should only do that if you have sufficient evidence to obtain and sustain a conviction on appeal. You should only do that if it's in the national interest to do it. You can't prosecute every case. You have to be a good steward of the department's resources. And that means prosecuting cases that make your community safer, cases that are important for deterrence or other reasons, and not just whimsically being willing to pursue the president's revenge agenda or turning over, $1.7 billion worth of tax.
Did she say whimsically? So this Trump administration, his Justice Department is full of whimsy?
Taxpayers' money for him to use as he pleases. That is absolutely nuts.
And what I've said, and maybe you agree with the analogy, this was Pam Bondi and now it's Todd Blanche, is that the Justice Department has been captured by Donald Trump and used and abused as his personal weapon against his critics, to silence and threaten his critics and to help his allies. I was waiting for the help the allies part. We got the answer today. But let's just remind people how he has abused the Justice Department to not go after, billionaire powerful men who raped girls along with Jeffrey Epstein, but used it against his critics, and why that was a warning sign for the rest of us. Hey, we should pay attention to this.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many examples, right? I mean, obviously, we've all watched the revenge agenda unfold. Jim Comey, James, the senators and members of Congress who made that videotape. with such an objectionable principle, right? Telling members of the military, hey, you shouldn't follow illegal orders. That was such a bad case that they couldn't even get in front of a grand jury that would indict it. The more, I think, as you've pointed out, the more, or maybe the more opaque piece is the helping your friends piece.
Yeah.
But, I'm old enough to remember a guy named Tom Homan who worked for CBP, who was under investigation for taking $50,000 in a kava bag as a bribe for steering business towards certain people who wanted business with the Trump administration. And Pam Bondi just killed that investigation dead.
And there was a
That, to me,
videotape.
is
It was an FBI sting operation in which there was videotape of
right,
Border Guard Tom Homan
right.
literally taking a bribe. In normal times, I think that's illegal, right, Joyce?
Typically that's illegal. And look, I'm not going to make light of a prosecution. The devil is always in the details. But for that case to just be preliminarily shut down without full investigation, without, for instance, going to the grand jury, which this crew did even with, Alyssa Slotkin, couldn't get an indictment. Well, with Homan, they just shut it all down.
And it's one of those situations. I'm so glad you brought that up because I used to remind people about it. No one cares anymore because there's an avalanche of shit. Tom Homan, when he was interviewed, never denied taking the bag of money.
That's
All
right.
he-
He said nothing that I did was illegal.
Yeah, but he was asked by Laura Ingraham. He was asked.
Yep.
So he's admitting to taking the bag of money, which we all know.
See, and I'm not sure if I'm going to go that far, but I think it's fair to say that he did not deny the allegations that were
He
made.
did not deny it, but he said, to your point, well, I did nothing wrong, which is questionable. But he's still the border czar. Nothing happened to him. Pam Bondi said, moving on. When it comes to the cover-up, that's the language that I use. Hillary Clinton uses now. Thomas Massie is using. Ro Khanna is using. About the Epstein files. It was the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who last April informed Donald Trump he was all up in the Epstein files. And then we had found out that FBI agents were working 2-day shifts back to back, finding and scrubbing Donald Trump's names. Is that probably the best use of the FBI's time?
Yeah, well, I assume that that's a rhetorical question. Can I share an experience that I had with you
Please.
yesterday? Because this is really interesting. There is now a physical library of the Epstein files. And there's a group that's been doing an online reading of the files from front to back for the last 48 hours. I think that they're just about done. I read yesterday, and just by luck of the draw, the part of it that I got was the transcript of when the Justice Department goes into court to ask the judge to dismiss the prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein because he's dead. Now, the law is pretty straightforward, right? Once your defendant dies, you're out of business and the judge is going to dismiss the case. What was so interesting about reading this transcript, and watch, this is nuts. The prosecutor's name was redacted, but I'm pretty sure that the woman who was running the Epstein case was Maureen Comey. So just a good reminder that they redacted the name of the prosecutor, but they have exposed some of the victims and survivors. But she is going through it and she says to the judge, now, look, we're asking you to dismiss this prosecution. We have to. But that does not mean that we're done here. And she talks about prosecuting co-conspirators, plural. She talks about the help that they've received from the victims and how grateful she is for their support. She says, we've brought them all into court. We have not made any effort to control what they might want to say to you today, Judge. We've just given them notice that this hearing was here and that it was available for them to come in. And it was such a snapshot of that moment in time where the Justice Department was really trying to prosecute Epstein, Maxwell, and of course, we've now seen these memos that were released as part of the Epstein files that suggest that there may have been as many as 10 other people that were being looked at in a serious way.
And speaking about the Epstein files in today's hearing, the Epstein files were brought up a lot.
Yeah.
And I just want you to share this, that the Epstein survivors say that Todd Blanche lied under oath. Aaron Parnas says Epstein survivors blad Todd Blanche for suggesting he met with them or their lawyers. Quote, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche has not met with any of us. Furthermore, we had Merkley asking is the Epstein investigation closed or open? And Blanche said, which was infuriating, I don't understand what Epstein investigation means. Any investigation into potential other bad guys will always be open if we have evidence. And then Van Hollen asked, can you commit that the Justice Department, you, the acting attorney general, will not recommend a pardon for people named in the Epstein files? Ghislaine Maxwell. What did he say? There's hundreds of thousands of people named. What he forgot to say was the person named the most is his boss, Donald Trump. Your response to his answers to the Epstein investigation, Joyce?
Well, look, I think it's appalling that the acting attorney general of the United States lied to Congress. And I have spoken with a representative of some of the survivors this afternoon about that exact point. And I'm told that although at least one lawyer has had some conversations with the Justice Department, the survivors absolutely have not. And in fact, a group of them, this large group of survivors that works together, they actually issued a statement and said, hey, Mr. Assistant or Mr. Acting Attorney General, here we are. We'd love to meet with you. Consider this an invitation to get together. So I'll be interested to see if he takes advantage of that.
I hope, you know what? Let's see. The more this is in the news, I think it's more important because over 75% of Americans want the release of the Epstein files. The Epstein files, Donald Trump cannot escape. The survivors, the victims who speak up, it puts the onus on Donald Trump. The reason why Donald Trump, one of the main reasons why Donald Trump spent all of his ammunition against Thomas Massey. We'll find out the results tonight. It's the most record-breaking in terms of money spent in a primary. It's happening today with Massey.
Well, by the way, I just had a push notice in YouTube that Tucker Carlson has some words about Thomas Massey's defeat in the primary. So we may do an audible and listen to that.
Is because Massey is dogged in the release and transparency of the Epstein files. Donald Trump did not like it. So Donald Trump says, I need your scalp. Let's see what will happen. But the fact that...
You know, before we move off of that, though, I think that that's critically important because in other elections, in other races, people who've broken with Trump have not had an easy time getting reelected, right? I mean, across the board. If Massey has found the secret sauce for being a Republican and opposing Donald Trump, it could well become open season in the primaries.
That's what I was talking to Alex Wagner about it earlier today. It's going to be a really close race, folks. But I feel like if Massey barely hangs on,
nope, it wasn't close.
It is a huge crack that because Donald Trump has spent literally all of his ammunition against him. AIPAC has spent it's the record-breaking primary race, folks. I'm not making up. $34 million have been spent to unseat Massey. If he somehow wins, Joyce, I think it shows a major weakness for Trump.
Well, I think absolutely it will do that. And, you know, there was a great question in the comments from Colleen. I'm sorry I didn't catch her last name. But she says, you know, Blanche says he can't reach out to the survivors because they're represented by lawyers. Is that true? And let me tell you, that is true. If you're represented by a lawyer, then Justice Department prosecutors reach out to your lawyer. But there's no reason that they can't do that. It's easy. We do it all the time. It's routine. And for victims and survivors who are not represented by lawyers, they can absolutely reach out to that individual on their own. So saying that there's some reason he can't be in touch is just a non-starter.
Yeah, and this is a situation where we're looking at this and speaking about the questions coming from our online audience. Hey, 1,500 people watching. People are despondent. They're heartbroken. They're like, how do we stop this? Because if who watches the Watchmen? If the Watchmen themselves are corrupted, it's like if the judge is corrupted, if the jury's corrupted, if the bailey's corrupted, if the defense attorney's corrupted, and the prosecutor's corrupted, is it even a kangaroo court? Because I don't even want to disrespect kangaroos.
I mean, the incredible thing about our system is our institutions have all had just an unbelievable stress test for these last 12 years, 15 years. And the remarkable thing to me is how well the justice system has held. I mean, the federal district court judges across the country who are making these decisions based on what the law says and what the facts are. And if Donald Trump wants to put a target on their back, so be it. the prosecutors who are trying to do their job. You know, I saw that a lawyer at the Treasury Department, the top lawyer at the Treasury Department, resigned out of the blue yesterday. So I assume that
Yeah, I
that's
saw
a
that.
response to the settlement. But judges, prosecutors, juries who still go in and decide cases as they should be deciding them. I mean, I think that this is a remarkable testament to the strength of American democracy and the fact that Donald Trump can stress test our institutions, but he has not broken them.
So they're stress tested, they're being taken over, they're being weakened, but you still see resistance. This IRS today was so egregious. I want to go back to today because
Yeah.
you saw Donald Trump bully the IRS with this sham type of, what was it, like threat. Then the IRS settles with Donald Trump, and in their settling gives 1.8 billion of our dollars to pay off his violent insurrectionist, and then also promises not to ever do an audit or look into his family's taxes.
Yeah.
Because that's a totally normal thing, Joyce, right?
Yeah, it's really not normal, right? And I mean, the sad thing about it is Trump didn't have to resort to his usual bully tactics because he actually is the IRS.
There you go.
This is a president who says, I'm the unitary executive. I can make the calls. And that's precisely what's happening here. His lawyers at the Justice Department are calling the shots. I think Todd Blanche's name is on the settlement. I actually have a copy of it here. I'm not sure if he's the signatory or if it's Stan Woodward, the Associate Attorney General, who's been signing things. No, it is Todd Blanche, in fact, himself, who has signed off on this agreement. So we know exactly where this is coming from.
And, you mentioned kleptocracy, and you mentioned in your piece, this self-dealing, this takeover, the broligarchs drinking all of our milkshakes. This is on the heels of a big piece of news that just went by the wayside because this is so egregious, is that Donald Trump made 3,000 trade deals. Donald Trump engaged in conflict of interest. NVIDIA, he bought NVIDIA stocks. And look, he brings the head of NVIDIA to China. And look, NVIDIA is going to, China is going to open up the Chinese market to NVIDIA. And look, the UAE invested $500 million in his crypto firm right before the election. And then lo and behold, after he was elected, he sells advanced AI chips to UAE, and him and his family have somehow made up to $8 billion. Joyce, can you remind us, and I know you want to say something, but also remind us, what did Jimmy Carter have to do as president?
I mean, I think that you have just done a masterful job of describing a kleptocracy. Jimmy Carter sold his peanut farm. I will give you a more personal example. So, little known facts, I'm a knitter, and I used to dye my own yarn and sell the occasional skein of yarn on Etsy. And to become a United States attorney in the Obama administration, I had to agree to shutter my Etsy business selling yarn because the concern was somebody might buy an $18 skein of yarn to try and curry favor with me. And, we took that seriously. And I thought that it was the right thing for me to do, that there should be no possible taint of unfair dealing for people that were working in government, representing the public. And that feels so quaint, just like Jimmy Carter and the peanut farm feels so quaint at this point.
Because, and I'm glad you mentioned that, and you could have, the money you would have made through that yarn, Joyce. You could have been living pretty. You could have been living pretty, but instead you chose your silly ethics. Gosh, yes, shameful for you being a Girl Scout. But let's think about it. The reason why he sold his peanut farm is he wanted to ensure that the policies that he enacts as the president of the United States would be for the betterment of the people, and that you don't want to put yourself in a moral quandary where you have a conflict. Well, you know what? This is great for my peanut business. Might be bad for the other farmers. Do I help my peanut business? Do I help the farmers? Peanut business, farmers, right? And with Donald Trump, he's like, my peanut business, my crypto business, my AI business, me. And now he's doing it openly. And, I was talking to just the theme of today. I had Ruth Ben-Ghiat on.
One of my favorite people in the whole world. She's such a treat.
Yeah, I had so many people on. We were talking about this because and she agreed with me, and she's a scholar on this, so it made me feel like I was onto something. The mask is off. I'm sure you saw his clip last week. He's a creature of television. He has a camera on him right before he's about to get on Air Force One. How much do you care about the financial problems of America? He goes, not one bit. And then today he said the same thing.
That?
today he said the same thing about gas prices. It's just peanuts. I don't worry about it at all. And now the mask is off. You saw the 22-point Palantir fascist manifesto. You see Elon Musk. But it's twofold. And Ruth seemed to agree with this. It's arrogance. It's a realization we have all the power. We have control. What are you going to do about it? We're mocking you and we're trolling you. But the performance of power also masks fragility and fear. They're going for everything because they realize, oh my God, they might come after us. Let's sandbag, sandbag, sandbag. And
Donald Trump is a lame duck president. He will not have a third term. He might want to pretend. He might want to posture. He will not have a third term. Justice Amy Coney Barrett has already gone on record as saying that that's a non-starter. Even the Chief Justice, who I certainly have more than my fair share of issues with his jurisprudence these days, would not go for that direct of an affront to the Constitution. Donald Trump is the lamest of lame ducks. And so I think that you're dead on the money when you say they're playing for whatever they can get now as fast as they can. But Trump has sold us this myth that he's invincible and that he can never be held accountable. And, that's just wrong. Let me tell you, there are folks who will go flooding back into the Justice Department, people who have been fired, or people who have left who will go flooding back in, and they will have fealty to the rule of law, and they will do the right thing. And if there is evidence that suggests that anyone up to and including a former president should be prosecuted, they will prosecute. And if there's not sufficient evidence, they won't. But Donald Trump's day is coming.
Amen. And final question I want to ask you, because I know you're busy. Thank you so much for making time. The Supreme Court. I believe the Supreme Court, the 6 justices, are completely corrupt. I believe they're mocking us to our face. I think they have. I'm not surprised, but I am shocked about the gutting of the Voting Rights Act. I see how they go against their own reasoning to bum rush the racist Alabama map. And I'm afraid that they will do anything and everything to make sure Donald Trump stays in power. Do you support reforming this court? And if so, how should we reform it?
Oh, my. I think that there are a number of things that are essential to having a Supreme Court that is entitled to have the people's confidence, starting with an ethics code. The Supreme Court is the only judicial body in the country that does not have a binding ethics code that governs its conduct. And if it did, when the disclosures came out about Clarence Thomas and the money that he had taken from people who had interests in cases before the court, it would have been time for him to retire. And it should look, and I have no animosity towards the man. Clarence Thomas was my circuit justice in the 11th Circuit. And he was very good to the Justice Department lawyers. He certainly bent over backwards to be kind and collegial. But the point of ethics is that even if you like people or think that they're okay, or even if they're people you have some concerns about, but you have to work with them, so you do. Ethics trumps all of that. And if you violate ethics rules, it's time for you to be gone. And because there are no ethics rules, folks on the court don't get held accountable. Sam Alito gets to laugh off his wife flying her little upside down white supremacist flag.
2 flags at 2 properties.
Right, too. That is behavior that's unacceptable for a federal judge. I seem to keep slipping into family stories today, but I'll just say that my father-in-law was a federal judge. He was an 11th Circuit judge. We understood that the way that we behaved reflected on him. And so, for instance, my father-in-law, even before my husband and I were married, he actually recused from cases that involved my law firm up in Washington. Didn't have to, wasn't an obvious recusal. I wasn't a partner. I was still an associate. He nonetheless recused straight up from any cases that could have even suggested an appearance of impropriety. And I miss those days so much. This Supreme Court needs an ethics code. I think that term limits are not a terrible idea. When the founding fathers created the system that we had, people did not live to this age. And I think the problem, like with all things, is that the devil would be in the details. And it would require a bipartisan consensus in Congress to create a way of imposing term limits that would not be political. And so it would require, frankly, it would require us to come back to our senses to write the new rules that we need. And I don't know that we'll get there in a short-term linear fashion. I do think that we'll get there. I think that it may not be pretty getting there, but my hope is that we will get to the point where we can restore the Supreme Court, because it really pains me as a lawyer and as an appellate lawyer to see a court with this level of disregard for the law.
Are you open to court expansion?
I think that that's a more difficult question. I'll tell you where I think it works. We have 9 justices because there used to be 9 circuits in the country.
Yeah.
Now we have 11 circuits, and it's sort of a problem because you don't have one justice for each of the circuits. And so it would be nice to go up to 11. Same caveat, right? You would have to find a way to do it that was both not political and also was like 11 was the firm limit. The next, guy wasn't going to come in and go up to 15. The one, and I do, Waj, I do tend to favor that as a solution. But I will tell you that there is just a practical risk on courts that get too big and can no longer do their work. 9, is a cozy, good number on the Supreme Court. Everybody can read everybody else's opinions. They have the opportunity to have meaningful exchanges. I think at 11, they would still be okay. But sort of the nightmare is the 9th Circuit, which is so big and huge and voluminous that the judges will tell you that they cannot read every opinion that's written by their brethren and sistren, which is really not a great way to make law. We can't let that happen to the Supreme Court, even for the best of motivations.
You know what? We got to do something, though, folks. We got to do something because this is not sustainable, and they're playing for all the marbles. Joyce, thank you so much for taking the time. I said half hour, but we went 31 minutes. It's okay. Joyce, shamelessly promote yourself.
I really hate shamelessly promoting
I know,
myself,
that's what
but
I'm
I
asking
will
you.
say thank you so much for having me. Thank you to everybody who's here. I think the fact that there are almost 2,000 people here on a Tuesday evening when y'all could be out having drinks or eating dinner with your families suggests to me, roll tide, DC Heilman, suggests to me that we are going to get through this. We'll get through it together. I just don't think that the next few months are going to be a lot of fun. So what I want to say to all of y'all is just please don't give up. Please keep coming to hear Waj, to read Waj. I'd love it if you would come and read my Substack Civil Discourse. You can subscribe for free. And what we need to do is all stay in community together and get this done.
Amen. And do not underestimate Joyce's knitting game. She will F you up. In a knit off, she will F you up. But it's a fantastic Substack.
I will. It's true.
Yeah, it's true. She flexes. It's a fantastic Substack. Her latest piece on kleptocracy.
All right. Well, I am thinking about watching this. The Israel lobby defeated Thomas Massey and killed MAGA. I don't know about that. Killed MAGA, huh? And we are down to 3 people. Not sure. Not sure. Let's see. Manna Tomorrow went live. What to do? Let's excuse me. See. Excuse me. And I see Moore has gone live. Are foreigners spying on American citizens through YouTube panels? Oh, what a goddamn moron. You know what? Let's see. I think I'm going to end it. I'm either going to go over to Manna Tomorrow's or go harass CM. Not sure which. So I will see everyone. I think I'm going to do the regular show at 3:30 tomorrow. Not sure that these hours are working. So see y'all tomorrow. Yeah. With all that we have given them, we should own perhaps at least one half of this asset, the revenues generated because of and it's not it, just take out the Obama race part. Why the fuck is the president of the United States hosting cartoons?
Stanley walked tall with a paperback brain.
Well, I don't know what it was, but the thing is that if you ever go and you kind of read these people's biographies,
fearing his shoes, library brave.
The MAGABlacks, you get a bunch of MAGABlacks. That's what you get out of it, President. You get MAGABlacks who will put. They will. And then the other thing we've forgotten is brevity. That's the main lesson I learned today, and I know.
I'm staying